Cast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, thank you for joining us in our monthly community call for the LawHelp Interactive community and online forums. This month we have an exciting call where we hope to get a lot of interaction with all of you. So thanks for joining. We'll go through the regular announcements, which are we're gonna record the call, and this is the link where we're gonna put it, and we're gonna let people know when it's up. And then in terms of what we want to cover are the routine updates on opportunities coming up. Then we're going to briefly, Mark Lauritsen is gonna do a quick show and tell of a developer support tool we're hoping to start using in 2019 that hopefully will make your life as a developer of online forms a lot smoother and less frustrating. We're gonna then talk about we're not talking about every single little thing, but Miranda is gonna give us a quick run through of the major enhancements we did on the platform in 2018, forecasting what we're gonna have done by the end of the year. And then Mark is going to lead us through a very wonderful ideation of the ideas that we have identified in 2019, and then hopefully then open it up for feedback on those ideas, but also then hear suggestions from all of you on things that we may not have already talked about or we haven't even conceived. So that's the plan for today. So I'll start quickly with the updates. The first update that I wanted to share is that tomorrow NLADA is gonna be doing a call on the opioid epidemic, and it will talk about what the mental health funding group, SAMHSA, is doing in terms of funding and how legal aid can partner to provide services related to the opioid addiction and helping take control of that. So that's tomorrow, and you can sign up, and the call is being organized by NLADA, and hopefully will be helpful to all of you, either in legal aid or those of you who partner with legal aid or with people who are working in the healthcare or social work fields around opioid and drug abuse in the United States. The other update is that we are still taking registrations for our live training. This year is again Monday and Tuesday before the ITC conference, and we're going to close it by the 15th of December at the latest or sooner if we reach the caps. And so check it out. We'll have beginners and advanced, and we're very excited about that. So hopefully some of you, if you're planning to go to ITC, you can come and come back and refresh with us the 2 days before then. The other thing that is very exciting is that we're going to be hosting our national technical webinar. And this year, Mark is going to lead a conversation that will look at ensuring that the substantive guidance and the documents that get printed through online forms stay current and make sense to the end user. So it's going to be a really interesting topic, and we're going to have Angela Trepp from Michigan, and then Kevin Mulcahy. I don't know how to say his last name, sorry, but he's with you. How do you say it?
Kevin Mulcahy.
Mulcahy from Neurologic, sharing with us their techniques, how they do that, since they do a really good job with that substantive accuracy, not only in the guidance, but also in the final output. So that's on December 4th, so check it out. Hopefully we will see you. And then the last update is that if you're going to go to ITC, even if you don't come to the training or anything like that, if we haven't met you yet, we would love to meet you. If you want to sit down and talk a little bit about your project one-on-one, we're going to be there. And, we want to make ourselves available, talk about your projects, and see how we can provide assistance and support. So that's it. And so we're going to now move to the demo. I'm going to give control to Mark. But basically, as you all may know, we have the probono.net/LHI website that we released in 2009, and that has been like a super macro library where we post content not just for developers but for the multiple audiences we support. And since 2012, we've been really grappling with how do we make this a more useful tool specifically for developers. So we're looking to doing those changes, and we have a beta product that Mark is going to showcase.
Okay, I'll do this kind of quick. You're seeing my screen, I assume?
It disappeared for me, but oh yeah, I see it.
Okay. As folks may know, if you're on LawHelp Interactive and you go to Help, for a while now we've had our help system implemented in Zendesk, and this seems to work pretty well. This is totally open for anybody who's on LHI at the moment to go into various categories about information about normal users. But if you want to test the new developer forum, which we're working on, the knowledge base, there's a developer resource center for authorized users only. You have to have an account. We don't presently have a single login, but I am logged in here. I believe it looks that way. So I can go to the developers resource center, and now there's two areas. It's only a little bit of content so far, so we're really at the early stages, and we're just giving you a preview of coming attractions. This will probably come live in the first quarter of next year. But the idea is we'll have a variety of categories and content. A lot of the stuff that's been in the DA support, DA Document Assembly Resource Center, historically, we're going to try to move here because it's just easier to work with, we found. It's more searchable and more modern in the experience. So there's a knowledge base that'll be here. And then there's also a community. This is a community forum. And you get to that by clicking on the community at the top left. And this is also broken into topics. So we've got a half a dozen or so of folks who we've given early access to. So far, we're not getting very much feedback. If anybody on this call is particularly interested in being involved in the early stages and giving us feedback, we can give you an account and you can play around. So I'm not talking to myself here. And I think that's all I wanted to do, Claudia, was just kind of show that it's there, it's happening, it's a new corner of activity. We think it has promise to be determined. Do you want to add anything to that, Claudia or Miranda or Bart?
No, just if people want to be part of the preview group and give us feedback as we beef up the content, which is going to be solely developer, not any other user type, reach out to us and we'll add you so that you can start looking at it. And when we think that we have it ready, we will post it on the list and invite everyone to come and start using this. Eventually, we hope we will move developers away from the website approach and use this tool, which hopefully will be a lot more interactive, and it will create a lot more share. You know, as you comment on articles or you use them, you'll be able to see what other people are looking and just create more of a distributed knowledge base. So that's that. So I'm gonna take back the screen.
And Claudia, we got a question from John Mayer. Does this enhance or the document assembly mailing list?
Right now, we're not considering it as a replacement to the document assembly list. The community forum, if it becomes used and at the point where it's used robustly, we can discuss with all of the community whether they want us to turn off the lists. But right now, we plan to continue monitoring and supporting the list and responding to people that way. But also, we also want to start moving to this. The main target, I think, for us is to not have the developers have to go to a different website and log in there to get content that is just for developers. I hope that answers that. Okay. Any other questions on that? Okay. So I'm gonna take presenter again and continue. Okay. So thank you, Mark, on that. So that's gonna be happening soon. So Miranda, just tell me when to scroll down.
Thanks, Claudia. You can move to the next screen. And as Claudia mentioned, I'll be talking a little bit about the enhancements that we have completed so far in 2018. Not an exhaustive list, but wanted to highlight a few items that we've been working on. And also what we have targeted to have released next month. So we spent a lot of time in the first half of the year making updates to the look and the feel of LHI after rolling out the redesign late December last year. And sort of a part of that was continuing plain language and multilingual content updates throughout the site. And once we felt the new look and feel was pretty settled, we also wanted to circle back and work on accessibility issues. So we did that with WCAG 2.0 AA standards in mind. This is not a major change, but a popular one. We re-implemented the universal search feature in various places in the site. So in addition to sort of the filtering and sophisticated search made available through the grid system that we implemented, there's also this high-level search available across columns. On the next slide, just wanted to show some visuals of the changes that we made to the Start Interview page. This is the most popular page, or the page that people generally land on when visiting LawHelp Interactive, so we wanted to make sure that we got this right. So the current version is shown against the version we rolled out with late December, and we made these updates with the help of your feedback, user feedback. We re-engaged Rooted, who's a design firm that helped us with the redesign and a usability study of LHI, and came up with this for the Start Interview page. Somewhat related, on the next slide, we made some changes and improvements to password and account setup, that general experience for end users. We're trying to balance making sure that account and password requirements were in line with sort of best practices around having strong and secure accounts online, but also trying to not make it so difficult that people won't sign up for accounts on LHI. We instituted automatic account deletion for accounts that haven't been active for an extended period of time. So we already were deleting answer data, but wanted to extend that to inactive accounts. This is a small but another well-received change. We defaulted our filter to show items that contain a certain element as opposed to equals to, because that's generally how we've heard people search. And in addition to these enhancements, of course, we've been addressing bug fixes and doing project-specific work. We've received EFSP certification with Journal Technologies. We've done some enhancements to LHI Connect, to our integration with Legal Server, and also live chat. So that's some of the work that we've been doing. And the next slide kind of talks about what we have planned for the remainder of the year. Some of the stuff is already in our staging environment if you're interested and want to test. But we're making some updates for the remainder of the year to the document options page. One sort of big one here is adding email capacity for anonymous users. This is increasingly important as more of our users are using mobile devices. We don't want to create a barrier from them if they don't have access, for instance, to a wireless printer. Email use generally has been growing over the past, I would say, 2 years, and I imagine that this new capacity will help that growth to continue. We plan on making updates to the feedback form. So although we collect the name, for instance, when people are entering feedback, we don't have that in the feedback form that our partners get. We're exploring an optional phone number. So if an organization wanted to have the ability to contact somebody by phone, they'd be able to request that. But we understand everybody's not going to want to collect the phone number of a person providing feedback, because it might create an expectation that we're providing phone support. So we want to make sure that that's optional. and then the ability to change the email where the feedback form goes to. There might be a reason to not have it default to the email address of the person that uploaded the form. And I think Mark is going to cover this a little bit more, because while it's planned, we're still kind of open to and soliciting feedback from partners on what are the right items to include in that feedback form to make it really useful for you. We're also working on reporting enhancements for the last month of the year, and future publishing. Again, this is a space where we would be soliciting feedback. So we understand that, partners might want the ability to future publish something. So if the law changes January 1st, they don't have to be ruining their New Year's plans by posting something on LHI. But we need to think about what the logistics are behind future publishing. Does that mean that the old template is automatically overwritten at that point and replaced? What happens with saved answer sets, etc.?
Okay, thank you, Miranda. Mark, do you want me to keep going down with the slides, or do you want me to turn it over to you?
Why don't you finish the slides first, Claudia, then I can...
Okay, so now we get to, hold on, let me make sure I can scroll down. Okay, so future enhancements, and just to frame the discussion, where do we get these ideas from? The truth be told is that we have a long list of ideas that we review at least once a year, and some we've said they're no priority, and we don't ever go back. We just decide, no, we're not gonna do that. But some have merit, and as the technology evolves, the community knowledge increases, new user flows come in, we may dust one back up and put it back on the list. The other thing is that a lot of it comes from calls like this. Every year we've been doing this call in November. We keep track of the ideas here. We meet every summer in New York with our core partners, and we go through a brainstorming exercise again, where we brainstorm together, the LHI team with Cali and Ohio and LSC. We think about ideas and features that may be of interest. Then we get emails, surveys, feedback from you, questions one-on-one. And so we try to keep a rolling list that we're, assessing every so often. Can we do this? Is this the right to do this? And so the criteria is not written in stone, but by and large, what I've written here is how we go about figuring out which ones to push. And a lot of this just really depends on the resources that we have that year, and then what commitments have we made. And we are very serious that if we take in something and we add a new capacity, we're gonna keep that capacity alive for as long as we can. So it's not like, oh, we're gonna do this for 6 months and then we're gonna roll it back. And what we want to make sure is that if we go to the trouble of doing this enhancement, that hopefully other groups, and we will teach other groups how to benefit from this new feature through the calls and stuff like that. But we want to make sure that whatever we build on LHI is usable not only to the person that requested it, but also to the other groups that are using LHI, because we're a platform that's national and we want to incentivize everyone to use technology to collaborate and do good stuff in the world. So that's kind of what I wanted to couch the discussion on, and I will continue on the ideas that Mark is going to kind of walk through with us.
Did we lose Claudia?
No, I'm here. So you can start walking us through. Can you see my screen? You see my screen?
Yeah, I was going to put on Google Doc, Claudia, but
okay.
But which has a different order. So, do you have multiple pages like this? Okay, this may be a little chaotic, folks, but this is we've sort of got several sets of lists of potential enhancements. I've got this Google Doc pretty much to be your scribe as we talk, take down notes, get some reactions from people about priorities. And Claudia, if I'm missing any that are on your slides, please stop me and we can add them. They're not all in the same order. But I deliberately left blank lines at the very top, so maybe before we do anything as far as an existing suggestion, I just ask the audience here, our community of folks who are on this call, have you got something on the top of your mind that you would like to really see be included, to be considered for an enhancement in LHI, either a new feature or an improvement of an existing feature? And I guess you can best do that by raising your hand, and we can unmute you and let you talk. While people are thinking, I just want to do a special call out to our good friend Bob Aubin, who I see on the call. He's been sidelined for a while, but he's back among us, and he's very welcome to be here. So good to see you, Bob. So anyone have a burning desire for an enhancement you'd like to get us started with?
I see.
Brett Harrison.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
All right, so yeah, I see Brett. Go ahead. Hey, Brett, you're up. You're audible.
Awesome. You guys can hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. One thing I'd love to see, and it's come up in years past, but is the ability to have like a save as features for saving your answers as a different answer file name at the end of the interview, and just saving over the existing ones. That would help tremendously for a lot of these kind of two-stage interviews. I've been seeing more and more, divorce interviews that are broken into stage 1 and the stage 2. So it would help a little bit for users, but also just for development, like being able to see what's happening to your answers with different interviews or debugging. That would help tremendously.
Yeah, I agree. That's been on our list for a long time. I'm not sure why we've never quite done it, but I just put it on the list here again. I'm not sure how to find out if other people are enthusiastic about it, but feel free to voice your support if you want to. Okay, Brett, next one down. Somebody else.
Mark, we've also got a request for monthly as opposed to quarterly reports. Some of the work that we're targeting for the end of the year means that partners would be able to pull their own reports. So maybe that resolves that issue. Also informally, for some partners who request that I provide monthly reports, if that's something of interest to the broader community, I can figure out how to do that until they're available for partners to pull themselves. So that's something we can do pretty quickly.
Okay. I know one topic that was in the earlier presentation was, should we add any other features to the feedback form? Claudia mentioned several. Others have special requests for how to enhance that form. Are there things we could be gathering from the user or giving to you as a contributor at the time you get feedback that we could put into that process? And I'm not simultaneously watching the question pane, so Miranda or somebody, if there's an answer in there, feel free to make it audible. So.
No feedback right now on that.
Okay. Let me have another call for just things out of the blue people really been waiting for or dying for, would like to have, that we can add. They may be on the list below, which I'll get to in a second, but anybody want to throw? I see Matt Newstead has got one. Let me unmute Matt. You're unmuted.
Matt?
I'm not hearing you, Matt, although your icon is changing.
Well, he wants to see the entire list. He wants us to show what's on your list. Yeah, we're going to walk through it, right?
Okay, I'm not trying to hide the ball. I'm just trying to stimulate some fresh thinking.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to unmute Matt. I'm going to mute Matt again. Okay, so on the feedback form, we didn't get any feedback on feedback. One big topic is new ways for users to deal with multiple documents, multiple files when you finish an interview. Right now, they just come up unoptionally as separate files, if that's how the program has been constructed. It's been suggested that there ought to be a download all button. Ideally, maybe an option to zip the contents of those files and get them as a single file. And maybe some sort of indication where you can check off and the system keeps track of things that have already been downloaded. Quick thoughts on that. Is that general category of functionality important to pay attention to? And are there specific aspects people would especially like to see?
Okay, I'll read out 2 comments. Sorry,
Okay.
you're coming in a little fast.
All right.
That's good.
Okay. Well, actually, so let's take a step back. If all partners could vote or prioritize all improved features, that could be useful. Can make a survey. Yes, please to download options. And then also, if we could know when people exit an interview on what screen question they left, this could possibly be a question on the feedback form. If you didn't finish the form, why not? And then another, yes, download all would be great. Select all, zip all. Very important for e-filing. I think that's download all. Some indication of which has been downloaded.
Right. Okay. I'm going to keep moving just so we cover. There's about 24 of these, so feel free to return to a prior topic if we don't cover it. But just to maintain some momentum here, this idea of publishing forward or publishing in advance, Claudia mentioned, is on the agenda for actually implementation before the end of the year. And the idea is that you can, when you have a form that needs to be updated, say on January 1st, because it's a new mandatory form, and you want your LHI module to be consistent, rather than having to stay up on New Year's Eve and push the button at 11:59 p.m., you'd be able to pre-position your new version of your module, whether it's A2J or Hot Docs or some combination, and specify a time when it goes into effect and replaces the existing one. That's the concept. I think the implementation is somewhat tricky, but does that feature appeal to people, and are there any particular aspects of that we should be thinking of as we design the actual technical implementation? I know it's very popular with court systems, which often have regular updates to batches of forms and find themselves going crazy on the day before a new form is in effect.
And I wonder the twist on that is that as you say, hey, put this up on January 1st, if you say then take this other one and you put in the 4-digit or whatever X-digit content and you take out your old one, if there's any feedback on that, whether that would be helpful or people, because what would happen is if the answer file is structurally not compatible with the new template that you upload on the first, the user may be not able to open it. So with that caveat, does that raise any issues?
Yeah. What I'm writing down, Claudia, is if something goes wrong, can you undo it? Maybe would be an
some revert.
Yeah, right. Okay. Sorry for my typing. My computer's slow and my hands are clumsy. That's an issue. Do we actually save both versions so you can kind of switch back and forth, or is it a one-time thing?
And there's a comment in the questions as to any way to let users know a new version is coming on X date in case the user is saving it to a file after the go live date, but doing it a few days before. So it's kind of an advance warning for, that something new is coming.
Right.
Yeah, and the developer would have to put that data in because we wouldn't know it from here. So as you up, I don't know where we would have to figure that out, but it's a good idea.
Right. Okay, that's a good idea. Okay, I'll keep going. This is one, when you get to the download your form page, apparently you can press the download file multiple times, and if you're on a somewhat slow network, you may stack up multiple requests. I don't know if that's the nature of that, Claudia. You may remember, or Miranda. Do we want to somehow alert the user once they click it once, saying, "Okay, processing, sit tight, your document's coming"? Ring any bells with anybody?
That sounds right to me. I think it's, particularly in certain browsers, it's unclear that any activity is happening. So that if we could amplify that it's in progress, it would be helpful for end users.
All right.
And we got a comment on that one. Should we just disable the button?
Right.
So we can't do multiple clicks.
Be a little nicer in some ways.
And yes, greater indication of progress would be helpful. Or the screen could dim a little bit while it's being processed. You couldn't click again.
Okay. That's an easy one. We'll create a mobile app for LHI. How about that? I think one problem there is I'm not sure how that would work with the various kinds of interviews we have to present. Would the app have to natively re-render an A to J interview and a hot docs interview in its own environment somehow? I have a feeling that's not a quickie. John Mayer may have a quick answer. Is that an area we should even consider going into, John?
Let me find John. I thought I unmuted him.
Good question. So A to J is mobile friendly, and the LHI website is friendly. I don't know the state of hot docs, but generally speaking, app. And I assume you're saying like an app instead of a website.
Yeah, that's the idea.
Is a whole new development stack with both the Apple Store and the Google Play Store.
Right.
I don't know. I mean, I know I've chewed on that multiple times on so many different projects and always come up with it's too high an investment to maintain the code for an app that is separate from what we deliver on the website. And so we put our attention on making the website more mobile friendly rather than trying to create an alternate path to it through an app.
I think that's been the answer on LHI. Yeah. So maybe we'll just move on, but I thought we could touch on it. Thought it was a good idea to touch on it anyway. Thank you, John.
Yeah.
If somebody wants to, find funding for $250,000 maybe to fund that work, that might be worth revisiting. What about font size? This is just another more, sometimes people find the default font size problematic. If we were to change it globally, it might trigger some problems where people are counting on a certain font size as far as how their interviews are laid out. But is that generally an issue? The nature of the font or the size of the font in hot docs interviews. We encourage users to just use their browser settings to magnify if they need to.
Yeah, as we get a little bit grayer over here, you know, and we're working on some forms for elderly communities. This font size issue is not one that's gonna go away. So trying to figure out if the default was made bigger, would that be a wise investment, because it would require us to do a lot of testing. But would that be beneficial, or would it be an annoyance for people who are on the phones?
We got a comment that it would be nice for if developers could adjust font size, color themes, and hot docs interview.
Mm-hmm. So not just size, but color also, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Let me keep going. We'll come back to any of these if they're worth discussing. This is one I think I've and others have raised. Which is right now, if you're inside of an LHI interview, whether it's A2J or Hot Docs, those two programs don't know whether you're logged in. They don't know whether you're on a mobile device. They don't know anything else about you. But we could potentially, LHI knows that information. It knows the person's logged in, what type they are, and it knows something about their device and their browser. If that information could be made available in the answer set, so the interview could adjust itself based upon that information, would that be useful? So you could have an interview where certain things you want to do a certain way if somebody's on a really small screen. Otherwise, you want to have a long, a typical standard interview experience. Anyone thought of use cases for that, or a sense of the relative priority of that kind of a feature? I'm just waiting for one of my colleagues to tell me if they see anything. If not, I'll keep going. This is kind of an interesting idea. This happens, I know, with DocAssemble and Upsolve, as noted here, where there's some ability to actually scrape data from a filled-in PDF. I think that's the idea, so that a user can say, here's the complaint I've received. I don't want to have to transcribe all the information from it. You computer ought to be able to figure that out. It's kind of a wild idea. I know it's technically possible. I don't know what level of effort is necessary, but is that something that comes up? Do people think that's an area worth exploring?
All quiet on the western end.
Okay, I will keep going. You get a flavor of what's out here. This is kind of a related idea, and this is just to go ahead.
We have somebody that said too much variability with scraping. And that's true that if you're working with multiple systems that keep their data schema differently, that would be a lot on our end.
That's a good point.
Scalable. It's good when you're doing one state or two, but if you're doing and then with courts, each county has their own, oftentimes they have their own setup.
Yeah. Okay. A related idea is we're starting to see in the e-filing context, but not elsewhere so far, is right now in an A2J or a Hot Docs interview, you can't upload a file as part of that process. You can't say, oh, give me a copy of your notice to quit or a document you want to include as an appendix. We now in e-filing let litigants upload documents as a separate process after the interview is done. Is that something more generally would be desirable? Does that come up very often, where in addition to giving answers to questions as a user, you want to give us a document of some sort? It's got some obvious security concerns about it, but what's the functional desire for that kind of thing? Anyone find not being able to do that an obstacle to you getting one of your templates or modules to work with?
We have a comment that it would be helpful for building the attachments, allowing the uploading.
Mm-hmm. We can actually integrate it into the assembled document, right?
Yeah. And then we have a no.
All right. All right. I'm not going to. I think the idea that I wrote down earlier of having a survey, kind of a systematic opportunity for people to vote or react to potential enhancements, is going to be much better than this call. So we're just going to gather miscellaneous comments today and not try to drill down to too much priority. What about autosave? This is the idea that right now you can, if you're logged in, you can press interim save. I think in Hot Docs, and I believe also in A to J, there's a way to save, exit, and return. Some sites automatically save things, like Google Docs, right? Like the thing I'm in. I don't have to keep saving it; saves it as I work. Is that an area that's of interest? And if so, always or just sometimes? And what do we do if somebody is about to exit? Do we say, "Wait a second, you haven't saved," and give them a chance to do that, kind of like Word?
We have a couple of big thumbs ups in the questions. Yes, please, all caps, and it's a great idea.
Okay.
And
I'm
how
gonna put
does
some.
that, I was just going to say, how does it work with another suggestion we heard earlier, that save as?
Well, save as is really for making a copy, right? So I think Brett's idea was that once you have an answer file, you could save it as something else. Then you'd have the original plus your new one. I'm not sure these two would collide in any way. Maybe you're thinking of something, Miranda.
It just seems that should there be some choice in the matter, maybe somebody's not ready to auto-save if they're dealing with different versions, but maybe that's not a concern that others share. So should there be enhanced saving, but not necessarily auto-save?
Okay.
More prompting.
Okay.
And the whole idea of making it optional somehow, so it just doesn't happen unless you want it. Someone may not want to have their stuff saved at all. They're there purely anonymously, right? They're especially concerned about privacy or security, whatever. But the notion, it sounds like that's worth spending some more time on. Okay. This is another big one. It's a technical lift that we may not be prepared to take, but right now when we emit a PDF out of LHI, it's not fillable. Unless you do something wrong, and by mistake you make certain parts fillable. But it's not possible right now to have LHI fill out a form and let the user edit what was filled out. Is that an area that there's a lot of demand for? People kind of expect your form to be editable post-assembly, keeping in mind that that'll mean your form is not consistent with any answers you saved. And you may screw up the form by checking a box and not doing what the form is supposed to do when that thing is checked. So a general inquiry is that, post-assembly fillability. Is that an area that people would find great value in or some value in?
Looks like at least one person is interested in post-assembly fillability.
Okay.
Interesting, but no great need for it yet.
Okay. I'm just going to I'm making a few notes here just for my own memory here. Okay.
And it seems like an important element would be making it optional.
Like a choice.
Okay, right. That's optional for the developer, I guess, right?
And it would be helpful in the context of multi-step forms packages.
Okay. Right. Here's one I think is one of Bart's favorites. I know I kind of like it too, but if you're somebody who has a lot of answers shared to you, they're shared in perpetuity. unless the sharer goes back and unshares them, I think they're going to be there in your list forever. Should you be able to decline or unshare a share? Does anyone else have that that experience or concern, or is it just a nuance we don't need to worry about?
I see one yes in the questions.
At you, Bart? Only kidding.
No, no, it's not Bart.
I can speak, but somebody else agrees with me.
Oh, good. Probably a relatively easy thing, but I mean, it raises the question: if you unshare, do we notify the person who shared? It's like if you're being unfollowed on Twitter, right? But I'm going to put an exclamation just saying that there is some interest, and move on. Okay. This is the idea of actually in the what we used to call the contributor portal. I don't think we use those words anymore, but in the listing of modules, would it be useful right then and there to have next to each row some indication of the level of usage? You know, this module has been run 600,000 times and assembled 700,000 times or whatever. And so, you know, I think one use case for that is if you're looking for a form to copy for a new project, and there are 30 different versions of something similar, maybe you'd be inclined to start with one that's been widely used and has kind of been battle hardened. What are thoughts about that idea?
Yeah, people are sharing, and I like that people ask me all the time about examples of popular forums. Would be a good indicator of where to look for examples. That would be helpful. Interested. Real-time usage in developer portal will be helpful. And then somebody else is like, nah. So it's, you know, it's I would asterisk it or like
All right, I'm just going to put an exclamation, which I haven't been doing lately, but to show that there's some interest for that.
And the period would be the past 7 days, the past 30 days, the past 15 days. Like what would be the period and how, you know, because we don't want to carry all the data either, right? So like this has been used however many times in a period.
Yeah, I see. Right.
And then somebody else is suggesting maybe make it searchable by volume. Give me all interviews that have assembled more than 1,000 times in the past quarter.
Right, right. So being able to filter and sort based upon it. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. This notion is to allow to include kind of reminders to review content. So you post some content, and you as a developer say, "Hey, remind me in a year to come back and update this form because it probably will have changed by then." So it's a new bit of metadata for the developer to kind of pre-schedule a reminder. I think that's the idea. It's kind of a freshness date for a template. This template has gone beyond its freshness date, and you really need to go fix it and update it if you want to leave it on LHI. Does that trigger ideas?
I think that if we as super admins had a sense of that date that the local owner picked, if we see a template past that date that hasn't been updated, it lets us know to reach out and say, hey, because sometimes there's transitions and staff transitions and stuff like that. But it would be good to know up and upload when that form is going to run its course, because people know the legislative meets every 2 years on family law or whatever. Some states may know when they are uploading how long that form will live, what the life cycle is. And for us, if we're getting a lot of feedback on a form past the life cycle, it will let the owner know, hey, what's going on with this form? Can we help you? Can we support you?
Mm-hmm.
So,
Are we any other comments on that? I hear you, Claudia. That's a good. It makes sense to me.
yeah, we got yes, it's a good idea, but do not throw it out if it's not outdated.
Okay.
And then useful. It also raises issues of whose email to notify. Will be good to give the developers more control or who gets noticed, because it may not be the developer, because the developer may not longer be affiliated.
Right.
And then, and then great idea, possibly, where is that one? Possibly even expand to warning emails if a template hasn't been touched by a developer in a number of years. And that one piggybacks with another one we had, Mark. I don't know where it is on your list, about deleting templates that haven't had any activity in 12 plus months.
Okay.
So that if they're templates that haven't had any use in 12 months by anyone, developer or any type of user, for LHI to automatically delete them. There's a lot of templates. If you look at the reports, every template that has a 0 or an empty row, those are templates that have no use. And the reports would be a lot easier for everyone. Even, if they were clean.
Yeah.
The portal, when you look on the portal, you would only be pulling the stuff that has use.
Okay. I'm mindful of the time. I'm going to crank through the remainder of these pretty quickly. This one is allow what are called overlay answer files to be associated with the module. So if you've got a template that has kind of a long list of courts and addresses in it, for instance, rather than maintaining that in your script of A to J or hot docs, you could maintain a quasi database through an overlay answer file. So this idea of an external answer file that acts as an answer source, does that hit anybody? Is that something you've run into and wish you had? I'll keep talking and jump in, interrupt me if you've got an answer to that. I know that Bart and I and a couple others have thought that'd be really nice, although technically it raises some interesting design and implementation challenges. Next one's kind of easy. I think as people know right now, if you do a typical old-fashioned hot docs A to J combination, and you decide at some point you want to have your A to J interview invoke a different template than the one you initially chose, you have to republish the A to J template in order to do that, even if you didn't change anything in the interview. And because that metadata in the A to J module is not editable. Has anyone run into that? I know I have. And would that be a popular fix? I don't know if there's any obstacles to it, but we're thinking about what would be nice to have.
There's a question about whether the overlay answer file would be employed automatically without the user doing anything. Would this be something that the system would do on its own?
Yeah, I think that's the idea. It'll just be part of the developer's machinery for their template to make it work. It would expect and use whatever the state of the overlay answer file is.
Okay, and then we got another comment. We love to be able to update the hot dog template ID,
Okay.
and would allow programs to keep the URLs consistent.
Yeah, I mean, you can still keep the URLs consistent now. You don't have to change your URL. You just need to go through a meaningless process of republishing to the same URL. But I hear you. Okay. I don't know, Jessica, if you run into that issue very often, but it does come up. Okay, this one I think answer overlay support is just a duplicate of what I just talked about.
Okay.
Not too many more. Okay, answer file upload. Where did that go? That's further down. I'll get to that in a minute. A safe exit, some kind of a mechanism, especially in the domestic violence situation, where a user can just click on a button and replace what's on the screen with something innocuous. That's something in general people would like to see. Is there a way we could do it specific to particular modules?
Also, models that you think are done well. We have some concerns about exit not really being safe. So how to manage expectations on what that type of functionality can and cannot do. We can't erase or don't want to get into the business of erasing browser history. So
Yeah. Okay. The Kendo grid people like, I think, for for searching answers and other things. Although some of us are frustrated that the scroll bar to move left to right is on the bottom of the screen. So I think this row here was just simply that idea of, if possible, put the scroll bar at the top so you can position the grid if it's too wide to fit on the screen the way you like, without having to scroll down to the bottom and then scroll back up. Is that a minor inconvenience that only a few of us have seen, or is that something others have run into? Keep going.
No comment. I had one that I wanna just put out there,
Yes.
Mark. The idea that LHI admins could freeze a template. So if we have a template that is misbehaving and we're getting a lot of errors on the technical support inbox, and we notify the owner and that interview is still there, and we keep like spending time with that, helping those end users with a template that we really can't fix. The idea that we could freeze that template, take it away from use, give a message to the user that's friendly and not scary, and then let the owner then do what they need to do to bring that template back. Right now, we don't do that. We're very, very leery of it being heavy-handed because it is your content and we know how hard it is to create it. But if there were a clear need to auto-freeze, how would people feel if we had that superpower?
A new superpower.
I mean, there would be notifications and all that, both to the end user and to the owner and to the developer, but the interview would not be usable to the end users, which could be a lot of people in some places.
Yeah, but it wouldn't be actually deleted, which is a more extreme.
It'd just be frozen. Okay, we're getting support. Mark, we got a lot of support on the idea of the templates that haven't been used. So we should asterisk that one, because that had a bunch of chats on that.
Templates that haven't been used?
Yeah, the templates with 0 use.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
I don't have that on my list, but I will add it.
And then the other one that I have was like only doing reports for live status. So that if the template is not in live status, it won't be counted at all.
Yeah.
That way people have an incentive, because some people leave their templates on development forever and they're actual real templates.
Yeah.
And we're looking at them and we're thinking they're not live status. And I think it's that they don't want to put the URL where the interview started from, because that's one of the, maybe they don't want to bother with the names or something else. But for us to just put reports from those that are in testing or in development.
Yep. There's a couple here I'll just mention quickly on my list, then we can have a few minutes for any more additions. Answer file upload. We allow developers to download answers, but we've never allowed uploads from your desktop. Is that something that comes up very often? People find the need to do that if you're testing and you want to not have to sit through and re-enter data on the online in order to test the same scenario? Is that worth pursuing? Above that is the notion of password. Do people have any problems with our current password requirements? I think they're pretty strict, but they are consistent with contemporary security best practices. A little bit hard to comply sometimes if you're not careful. I'll mention this one here on assembled file names. This is, if you do multiple document assemblies where you're creating a handful of different documents. Right now, the mechanisms for naming those files are pretty limited. You have to, follow certain protocols in your hot docs metadata in the component file. And if it's the first file in a set, it's going to be named after the module, which is a little awkward. Is that an area people have run into file naming? Or would you like to have actually put user data in a file, like John Jones's divorce complaint? Any of that trigger ideas? If not, since we're close to being done here, I have some empty rows. Having seen the list, everybody, is there something you would like to see that's not on it that we should throw into this mix here, so when we come back and try to prioritize, we'll have a more complete universe?
Okay. Well, the monthly calls and you're gonna get a survey on this webinar, and then you can email any of us at any time with an idea. This is not a conversation that is ever closed. So as you think through this, a new idea comes up that we didn't talk, feel free to share it. And what we try to do throughout the year is give you updates on what's going in the code pushes, because as we can bring some of these in based on the resources on how difficult they may be or how much maintenance they may require years down the road, we try to bring those in that where we get a lot of feedback that it would be really helpful to a lot of you. So this is never a conversation that ends. It's kind of like our ongoing, but we like to make the time to go through this with all of you, because it's helpful to have all of you in the call and communicating.
Okay. Thanks, everybody, for your feedback.
Yeah, and just to wrap it up, we'll have I think Miranda already put everything on the chat, but the next convening is the Getting Them Right with Angela Tripp, Kevin Moog, still don't know how to say his name, and Mark. That's on the 4th. And then the LHI training, where we'll have the beginning and advanced session in January, and the last call of the year, where I'm gonna ping some of you and highlight the good work that some of you have known that people in the community may not know about, and also share some of the other things that we've done with other partners in terms of technology and moving the bar higher in access to justice. So hopefully it'll be a fun call, and I hope some of you will join and brag about all the good stuff you're doing, because it needs to be recognized. So that's it. That goal is on the 18th, and thanks. We're 5 minutes over, so thank you all for staying with us.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Mark. Bye.